This is the story of how I built a 3.5 grand 2-litre turbo Vauxhall Nova and beat a F80 a BMW M3 in a drag race. Not just once, but twice. And here's the video of that race. Now sadly I never had a rear facing camera, so you can't see the look of disappointment in that poor BMW driver's face. So where did it all begin? I bought this little Vauxhall Nova back in 2014. It was a non-running C20XE powered SR with a GTE body kit and a makeshift black interior. I paid just £1,500 for the car, but at the time that was all it was really worth. It hadn't run for months and the original owner believed the fuel pump was at fault. I fitted a new uprated pump and hey presto, we were away. In 2015 I attended a few shows in her, but I really wasn't happy with quite a few things on the car. It needed quite a lot of paint work and it also needed a bit of welding here and there and a bit of a titubate. So I set to and the project well and truly begun. One new sill, 2 doors and lots of filler later was starting to take shape. I had little money and no garage big enough to do the work, so it was all done on my driveway, including the paint. I wanted to bring a bit of originality back to the SR. So the GTE skirts were ditched and the bumpers in the lower half of the car were painted in the original grey. I sourced the rough interior, which cleaned up surprisingly well considering the donor car had a tree growing in it. And at that time it was done. I was really happy with it. Fast forward to 2017, I'd done a few shows in the car, I'd used the car quite a lot, but I knew the little Nova had more to offer. By that point, the engine bay was tatty. The chassis legs, inner wings and crossmember had seen better days, so I cut bits out of the donor shell and fabricated the rest. Everything was reinforced and stitch welded. The front panel was cut back to make room for an intercooler and a turbo hose, and then I primed and painted everything to make sure the bay looked just as good as the outside. Once I was happy with the engine bay, I moved on to the engine. I sourced a pile of C20 let parts for just £500, consisting of most of an engine and a few other bits and pieces. I then managed to find a half decent engine loom, an EDS Phase 2 chip DCU and a nearly new turbo for just 200 quid. What a bargain. I cleaned everything up and I sold the original cost cast cylinder head off it for £400 and rebuilt my known good GM head, leaving me with a C20 let engine for just £100. Everything on the engine was stripped, cleaned, inspected and painted. I even did a continuity test on every wire on the engine loom and I repaired everything which wasn't 100%. I wanted this car to be known as a good converted Nova, but most importantly I wanted it to be really reliable. The engine was coupled up to the original F20 gearbox along with the clutch and flywheel. It was then fitted to the chassis using some second-hand solid engine mounts just to make everything that bit firmer. I found an eBay bargain Frontier intercooler and a yellow silicone intake hose that I wrapped in black silicone tape along with a cheap 3-inch downpipe from Marketplace. I built it all back up and took it on its first 2-litre 16-valve turbo drive. The boost came on really hard and really aggressive and it pulled me all over the road. If I'm going to be honest, it terrified me. I drove home with my tail between my legs and told my now wife I'd ruined my car. Not only was it too quick, it drove awfully. I was gutted. Half an hour or so later, I plucked the courage up to look under the bonnet and see if there's anything wrong. Straight away, I noticed an obvious fault. The actuator pipe for the turbo wasn't connected. This was making the turbo boost fully essentially. The wastegate wasn't opening and was getting boost levels of about 24 psi, which is quite high when you've never driven a turbo Nova. I put this back on and the car did feel better, but the tracking was all over the place. The car was constantly pulling to the left and right. Combination of the high power, the sticky tyres and the tracking just made it not a nice experience. I got it all adjusted and ran it like this for a while, but I always knew I could make it better. I took it to Santapod and managed a 13.59 second quarter mile. Isn't great, but again isn't bad either, so I was happy at the time. In my opinion, the car felt like it flexed a little bit on the chassis. This could have been in my head, I don't know, but I decided to do something about it. I reinforced the arms with 2mm plate and fitted hard polyurethane bushes. I fabricated a lower chassis leg brace along with top and bottom strut braces. Calibra turbo brake calipers were then sourced and refurbished and fitted to the car along with 280mm Mariva brake discs and the correct spigot rings to make them centre properly. The standard Nova gear selector was sloppy, so I fitted a Calibra internal shifter and I raised it an inch just to help with gear changing on drag races. I then modified the gear linkage, I cut all the original bushes out and replaced everything with solid rose joints. Everything was much tighter then. Novas don't have a steering UJ, they have like a rubber donut coupling. I cut this out and I've got a steering UJ from a Corsa B. I welded the two together and made a good one out of the two. That just made the steering just feel that little bit more direct and helped improve handling and speed. The 3-inch downpipe was mated to a wide piece to allow a vacuum control exhaust bypass valve to be fitted. This was made from scrap exhaust and the valve was controlled by a subtle switch on the dash and connected to an EGR solenoid, giving the option for one small 2.5-inch silencer or the full 2-inch system, which in my opinion strangled the power slightly. I removed the old long drive shaft and modified a Calibra equal length hollow shaft unit to fit. I had to cut 50mm out of it and weld it back up, but she's now stronger than ever. I also dropped the gearbox and fitted a Quaife limited slip differential. This lot really helped eliminate torque steer. 12-second quarter miles were in sight. So first time back at Santa Pod, I managed a 12.8 quarter mile against a 1.8 turbo converted Golf. I got the car MOT'd again and got it back on the road and had some fun with it. I probably had too much fun because I quickly smashed third and fourth gear and needed recovering home. I quickly stripped the original gearbox and made one good one out of two. I continued using the car throughout the summer, taking it to various shows, and these two chaps really appreciated the engineering behind the car. I even used the car for my wedding, however I did manage to shatter the clutch doing a burnout for the photographer. Oops. Luckily for me though, it didn't make me late and I did manage to limp it to the church in time. Clutch was now fixed and the car was booked in for Dyno. I knew the car performed well and was curious about the power it produced. It made 297 brake horsepower on high boost mode, with the exhaust valve open, and 260 brake horsepower with it closed with slightly lower boost levels. The rolling road technician was really impressed with the car. This takes us to where the YouTube channel began. The car was brought into the workshop for some more welding, paint, minor mechanical and electrical maintenance, and after all that, a really good machine polish. So this is all documented on my Nova playlist, so don't forget to subscribe and check it all out. Fast forward to spring 2022. The car was once again ready for the track. We went to Santa Pod and I raced 8 cars that day, ranging from a standard Audi A1 to an 8-litre drag prepared Pontiac Trans Am. I won time after time after time. The car performed faultlessly and I managed a new personal best of 12.3 seconds at 114 mile an hour. Very happy with that. To say I upset a few people is an understatement. Remember, this car cost me less than a 10-year-old average hatchback to build and buy. Pretty good going now. So you may ask, what is the plan going forward? Well, still use the car and I've got lots and lots of plans for it. I want to ditch the sunroof because it's a cartridge sunroof, it slides back, it makes the roof lower inside, which means I bang my head on the corner of it. Really annoying. It also adds loads of weight and to top it off, it's actually faulty. So I'm going to do what a lot of people say you shouldn't do, I'm going to weld it up. Sorry haters. I also want to whip the engine back out again, give it a little bit of a refresh, not because it needs it, but because I want to make sure it's nice and strong for the future. I've got some steel conrods to fit, and I've got a TD05 HR turbo off a Evo 7. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to fit this anytime soon, but future plan is to fit this and hopefully aim to get to around 400 horsepower with the car. I also want to make a new inlet plenum, a bigger one, and I don't know, maybe a new exhaust, who knows, eh? I also wouldn't mind painting the full car again. Now, I painted this in 2014, so it's a long time ago now. and I feel like I could do a better job inside with more experience. So that's maybe a job for the future as well. So if these things interest you guys and you want to see more of the build, let me know in the comments box below. For now though, stay tuned and I'll see you all very, very soon. Bye bye.